The volcanic moon of Terrace glowed like a crimson eye against the black expanse of space, its surface scarred by centuries of geological violence. Deep within the most active volcano on this hellish world, the QR Imperium had carved out their most secretive and impregnable fortress, DRL-9, the Deep Research Laboratory 9. This wasn't just any military installation. It was the crown jewel of their weapons research program, a facility so secure that even the highest-ranking officials in the QR hierarchy spoke of it only in whispers. Commander Vex Talon stood at the main command center, his silver eyes scanning the holographic displays that showed every conceivable angle of their fortress. The man was a legend in the QR military, having risen through the ranks, not through political connections, but through pure tactical brilliance. His angular face bore the characteristic pale blue skin of his species, and the neural implants along his temples pulsed with a soft light as they interfaced with the fortress's systems. Status report, Lieutenant Zarn. Talon commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. Lieutenant Zarn, a younger officer with the same pale blue complexion, but lacking the confidence that came with experience, consulted his datapad. All systems optimal, Commander. The energy barriers are operating at 112% efficiency. Guard rotations are on schedule. The quantum destabilizer and antimatter storage remain under maximum security protocols. Talon nodded approvingly. DRL-9 wasn't just protected by ordinary defenses. The facility boasted energy walls that could vaporize any known spacecraft, automated defense turrets with targeting systems that could track a grain of sand traveling at light speed, and most importantly, neural gas dispensers throughout every corridor, a weapon so potent it could kill any known species within seconds. The fortress itself was a marvel of engineering. Built into the volcanic rock, it extended deep into the moon's core, with multiple levels of laboratories, storage facilities, and command centers. The main entrance was guarded by a series of checkpoints, each more sophisticated than the last. First came the external scanner array capable of detecting life forms from 5 kilometers away. Then, the energy barrier, an invisible wall of directed energy that could level mountains. Beyond that, lay the checkpoint stations where guards wearing full environmental suits monitored every square centimeter of the approach. The Earth Alliance fleet has been quiet lately, Zarn commented, trying to make conversation. Talon's expression darkened. The war between the QR Imperium and the Earth Alliance had raged for decades, a conflict born from the QR's expansion into human-controlled space. The humans had proven annoyingly resilient, developing countermeasures for every QR weapon, adapting their tactics with an ingenuity that frustrated the more technologically superior QR forces. Quiet means they're planning something, Talon replied. Humans are like volcanic pressure. The longer they're quiet, the more violent the eruption when it comes. The two officers continued their routine assessment, when suddenly every alarm in the facility began to blare simultaneously. The command center erupted in flashing red lights as warning signals cascaded across the screens. "Report!" Talon barked, his hands flying to his control interface. "Commander," Zarn said, his voice crackling with static as he plugged directly into the surveillance network. "We have an anomaly at Gate 1. "Define anomaly." "Sir, there's a human walking through the main entrance. The guards are there." Zarn paused, his face pale with confusion. "They're opening the barriers for him. They're saluting him." Talon felt his blood freeze. "Show me!" The main screen flickered to life, displaying the feed from the external cameras. There, walking calmly up the reinforced pathway to the main gate, was indeed a human male. He appeared to be in his 30s, wearing a standard Earth Alliance uniform, but there was something unsettling about the way he moved. Too confident, too casual, as if he were taking a morning stroll through a park rather than approaching the most heavily fortified position in QR space. "Full lockdown now," Talon commanded. "Activate all defensive measures. I want every soldier on high alert." But as they watched in growing horror, the human simply walked past each defensive checkpoint. The energy barriers designed to stop anything from a single soldier to a full invasion fleet shimmered and parted like curtains as he approached. Guards who should have opened fire on sight instead stepped aside, their faces blank, with an expression that could only be described as reverence. "Lieutenant," Talon said, his voice deadly calm, "are our guards under some kind of mind control?" "Negative, sir. All neural patterns read normal. They're acting of their own free will. It's as if they believe this human has every right to be here." The human continued his leisurely walk, and as he passed each checkpoint, the surveillance cameras tracked his movement. Talon could see his face clearly now. Unremarkable features. Brown hair, brown eyes, nothing special about him at all. Yet something in those eyes made Talon's spine crawl. It was as if the human was looking directly at him through the cameras, acknowledging his presence, with a slight smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Activate the neural gas in Sector 7. Talon ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "If he won't stop, we'll stop him." Zarn's fingers danced over his controls. "Gas dispensers activated. Releasing concentrated neural toxin. Now." The corridor where the human walked filled with a pale blue mist, a gas so lethal that it could kill a QR soldier in full environmental gear within 5 seconds through simple skin contact. The humans had no natural resistance to the compound. It had been specifically designed to target their nervous systems. Yet the human didn't even slow down. He walked through the cloud of death as if it were a gentle morning fog, breathing normally, his uniform unstained, his pace unchanged. "Impossible," Zarn whispered. "The concentration is enough to kill 1,000 humans. He should be dead 10 times over." Talon watched in disbelief as the human passed through 3 more security checkpoints, each designed to stop progressively more dangerous threats. Motion sensors that should have triggered automated weapons simply recorded his passing. Bioscanners that should have identified him as an enemy instead displayed access codes they had never seen before. Guard posts where seasoned veterans should have given their lives to stop an intruder instead snapped to attention and saluted as he passed. "He's heading for the weapon storage facility," Zarn reported, his voice tight with fear. "Commander, if he reaches the quantum destabilizer." Talon didn't need the reminder. The quantum destabilizer was a weapon so powerful it could unmake matter at the subatomic level, capable of destroying entire planets by disrupting the fundamental forces that held atoms together. Next to it lay their antimatter storage, enough concentrated energy to level solar systems. "All available forces to Sector 12, Talon commanded. "I don't care if we have to seal ourselves in here forever. He doesn't reach those weapons." The response was immediate. Squads of heavily armed QR soldiers converged on the weapon storage sector, setting up choke points, preparing heavy weapons, activating every defensive measure the facility possessed. These weren't ordinary guards. They were the elite of the elite soldiers who had fought in 100 battles across the galaxy. Yet, as the human approached, something extraordinary happened. One by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons, not in surrender, not in fear, but in what appeared to be respect. Their commanding officer tried to order them to fire, but the command died in his throat as the human's gaze fell upon him. "Open a communication channel," Talon said, his voice hoarse. "I need to talk to this thing." "Channel open, sir." "This is Commander Vex Talon of the QR Imperial Forces." He announced, his words echoing through the facility's speakers. "You are trespassing in a restricted military zone. Identify yourself." The human paused in his walk and looked directly up at one of the security cameras. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost friendly, with a slight accent that marked him as coming from one of Earth's northern continents. "Hello, Commander Talon," the human said, and Talon felt his blood chill at the casual familiarity in that voice. "My name is Jack. I'm here for the quantum destabilizer and your antimatter reserves." "Those weapons are under the protection of the QR Imperium," Talon replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "No human technology can penetrate our defenses. Surrender now, and we might allow you to live." Jack smiled an expression that seemed both genuine and terrifying. "Commander, I think you misunderstand the situation. Your guards have already let me pass. Your weapons have already failed to stop me. Your soldiers have already lowered their weapons. The question isn't whether I can take what I came for, I'm already taking it. The question is whether you're going to learn something from this experience." As if to emphasize his point, Jack resumed walking. He passed through the final checkpoint into the weapons storage facility, and Talon watched in horror as the massive vault doors designed to withstand direct bombardment from capital ships simply unlocked themselves and swung open. "How?" Zarn whispered. "How is this possible?" Talon had no answer. He'd spent his entire career believing in the superiority of QR technology, in the invincibility of their weapons and defenses. Yet this one human was dismantling everything he believed in, simply by walking through it. "Emergency protocols," he finally managed. "Contact High Command. Tell them we have a Code Zero situation." Code Zero, the designation for an event beyond all planning, beyond all contingencies. It had never been used in the history of the QR Imperium. As they watched, Jack entered the weapon storage chamber. The quantum destabilizer stood in the center like a dark obelisk surrounded by containment fields and quantum locks that should have been impossible to bypass. The antimatter storage units lined the walls, each one containing enough energy to power a small star. Jack walked up to the quantum destabilizer as if he owned it. He placed his hand on the control interface, and immediately every security protocol deactivated. The weapon's status displays showed it powering up something that should have required a dozen technicians and several hours of preparation. "Sir," Zarn said, his voice barely a whisper, "he's moving the weapons." Indeed, Jack had somehow activated the facility's transportation system. The quantum destabilizer began to phase out of existence, transported by matter transmission beam to some unknown destination. The antimatter storage units followed one by one, disappearing in flashes of blue light. "Where are they going?" Talon demanded. Zarn checked his instruments frantically. "The transportation logs show Proyon. He's sending them to Proyon." Proyon, a desolate ice world at the edge of QR space, uninhabited and uninhabitable. Why would he send the weapons there? Jack seemed to hear the confusion in the air. Looking up at the cameras again, he spoke directly to Talon. "Commander, you and your people are warriors. I respect that. But this war ends now. I'm going to show you why." With that, he walked calmly back through the facility, past the shocked guards, through the deactivated defenses, out the front gate that stood open like a welcoming door. Talon tracked him all the way to a small Earth vessel that had somehow landed without triggering any of their sensors. "Sir," Zarn said urgently, "I'm reading QR Imperial fleet signals approaching Proyon. Admiral Kurvash's battle group is moving to intercept." "Put me through to the Admiral," Talon commanded. Admiral Kurvash's face appeared on the screen, his features set in grim determination. "Commander Talon, we've lost contact with your facility. What's your status?" "Admiral, we've been compromised. The human who took our weapons is heading for Proyon. He has the quantum destabilizer." "Understood. We'll stop him there. One human against a battle fleet, this ends now." The connection closed, leaving Talon staring at the screens. Part of him hoped Kurvash would succeed, would restore the natural order of things. But a growing part of him, a part he didn't want to acknowledge, feared what Jack was about to demonstrate. Hours passed. Talon and his staff monitored communications from the fleet, tracking their approach to Proyon. The reports were confident, almost arrogant. Kurvash had brought his full battle group, 12 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and hundreds of fighters, against one human. Then the transmissions from Proyon stopped. Sir Zarn said, his face pale, as he stared at his instruments. "I'm reading massive quantum disturbances around Proyon. The planetary mass signature is fluctuating." "Show me." The main screen switched to long-range sensors, focused on Proyon. What they saw defied every law of physics Talon knew. The ice planet was changing. Its surface was shifting, rippling like water. The northern hemisphere seemed to be separating from the rest of the planet, lifted by invisible forces. Then, Jack's voice filled the command center broadcast on all frequencies. Admiral Kurvash, Commander Talon, members of the QR High Command. You are about to witness a demonstration of power that the Earth Alliance hopes never to use again. Watch carefully. On the screen, the quantum destabilizer appeared to activate. There was no visible beam, no dramatic explosion. Instead, reality itself seemed to bend around Proyon. The molecular bonds holding the planet together simply stopped working. Half of the world dissolved into its component atoms, which then dispersed harmlessly into space, leaving behind a slowly rotating hemisphere that glowed with residual quantum energy. The destruction of half a planet accomplished in seconds, not by melting it, not by blowing it apart, but by literally unmaking it at the fundamental level. The power required for such an action was beyond comprehension. Jack's voice continued calm and measured. The Earth Alliance has possessed this technology for 70 years. We have chosen not to use it. We have chosen to let this war continue in the hope that reason would eventually prevail. Today, I am here to inform you that our patience has limits. Talon sank into his chair, his mind reeling. 70 years. The humans had possessed weapons that could unmake planets for 70 years, and they had chosen to fight with conventional weapons instead. The implications were staggering. One human walked into your most secure fortress, Jack, continued his voice, carrying across QR space. One human took your most powerful weapons. One human demonstrated that the Earth Alliance possesses technology you cannot defend against. No one walked out of your fortress because there was no need for violence, no need for death. We could have ended this war at any time. We chose not to because we believe in the value of every life, even those of our enemies. The screen showed Admiral Kurvash's flagship dwarfed against the devastation of Proyon. The Admiral himself appeared on screen, his face a mask of shock and defeat. This is impossible, Kurvash whispered. Our intelligence, our technology assessments, they all said. Your intelligence told you what you wanted to hear, Jack interrupted. That humans were primitive, that Earth technology was inferior. You believed this because it justified your aggression. But consider this: a species that can unmake planets, chose instead to defend and endure. What does that tell you about human nature? Supreme Counselor Drazkol's image appeared on the communication feed, his aged face grave. As the highest civilian authority in the QR Imperium, his words carried weight that even Admiral Kurvash had to respect. On behalf of the QR Imperium, Cole said slowly, I hereby authorize unconditional surrender to the Earth Alliance. We withdraw from all systems in the real sector immediately. We will pay reparations for damage caused. We formally apologize for initiating this conflict. Jack's image appeared on the screen, now standing on the bridge of his small ship, with the ruins of Proyon visible behind him. The Earth Alliance accepts your surrender, Supreme Counselor. We look forward to a lasting peace between our peoples. The transmission ended, leaving DRL-9 in shocked silence. Talon stared at the empty screen, trying to process what had just happened. Everything he had believed about human weakness, about QR superiority, had been shattered in a single day. Commander. Zarn's voice seemed to come from very far away. We're receiving new orders from High Command. Talon looked at the message that appeared on his screen. He was being reassigned. No longer a military commander, he would serve as a cultural attaché to the new Earth Alliance embassy. A desk job, essentially. The QR's way of quietly retiring officers who had been present for such a catastrophic failure. Days passed in a blur of activity. Earth Alliance ships arrived to oversee the evacuation of DRL-9. The fortress, that had taken decades to build, was abandoned in a matter of hours. Talon supervised the removal of personnel and equipment, watching as his life's work was systematically dismantled. It was during these final days that Talon received a personal communication. The message appeared on his private terminal, bypassing all security protocols. "Commander Talon, this is Jack. I wanted to speak with you privately before you leave Terrace." Talon looked around his empty office, then activated the secure channel. "What do you want?" Jack's image appeared, the same unremarkable human face, the same calm expression. "I wanted you to know that what happened here wasn't meant to humiliate you or your people. It was meant to end a war." "You walked through our defenses like they were nothing," Talon replied bitterly. "You made us look like children playing with toys." "Your defenses were impressive," Jack said, and Talon was surprised to hear genuine respect in his voice. "The energy barriers, the neural gas, the quantum locks, all excellent technology. But technology alone doesn't win wars. The hearts and minds of the people fighting do." "Your people's hearts and minds let you walk through our facility unopposed," Talon pointed out. Jack's expression became thoughtful. "Did they, or did something else happen in those corridors?" Before Talon could ask what he meant, Jack continued. "Commander, I want you to know that I've read your service record. You've led with honor even in a dishonorable conflict. Your people will need leaders like you in the years to come." "And what if I refuse to cooperate with this new order?" Jack smiled, that same friendly expression that had unsettled Talon from the beginning. "Then you refuse. The Earth Alliance doesn't conquer, Commander. We liberate. We hope that liberation includes liberation from old hatreds." "You haven't answered my question," Talon said. "How did you walk through our defenses? How did you turn our own people against us?" "I didn't turn anyone against you," Jack replied. "I simply reminded them of who they really are. Beneath the conditioning, beneath the propaganda, your people are fundamentally decent. They want to protect their loved ones, to build something better for their children. The war never served those desires." Talon felt a strange sensation as Jack spoke, as if veils were being lifted from his mind, revealing truths he had always known, but never acknowledged. "You're not human," he said suddenly. "Not entirely." Jack's smile widened slightly. "Very perceptive, Commander. I'm what you might call a hybrid. Human in body, but enhanced in ways that allow me to see through the illusions that divide us. The Earth Alliance has a few of us carefully chosen, carefully trained. We serve as bridges between species. And if the QR Imperium refuses to stay surrendered," Jack's expression darkened slightly, "then I'll have to bring friends next time. Trust me, Commander, you prefer me alone." The implication hung in the air like a threat and a promise combined. After the demonstration at Proyon, Talon didn't doubt that the Earth Alliance had weapons and abilities beyond even what they had seen. "Why are you telling me this?" Talon asked. "Because you're going to help build the peace," Jack replied. "Whether you know it or not, whether you want to or not. You've seen what happens when two species choose war instead of understanding. You won't let that happen again." The communication ended, leaving Talon alone with his thoughts. He looked out the window of his former office at the volcanic landscape of Terrace, thinking about everything that had happened. One human had walked into their fortress, their most secure installation protected by their most advanced technology and their elite soldiers. And no one had walked out because no violence had been necessary. The war was over. Not ended by superior firepower or tactical brilliance, but by a demonstration of restraint so complete it was itself a kind of weapon. The Earth Alliance had shown them a glimpse of their true capabilities, then immediately returned to the path of peace. As Talon packed his few personal belongings, he found himself thinking about Jack's words, about liberation from old hatreds, about building something better. For the first time in decades, he allowed himself to hope. A month later, Talon sat in his new office on the QR homeworld, reading reports from across the former war zone. Earth Alliance and QR forces worked together to repair damaged systems, to establish new trade routes, to build the framework of lasting peace. His title was Cultural Attaché, but his real job was translation, helping his people understand the strange new reality they found themselves in. The work was challenging, sometimes frustrating. Many QR citizens struggled to accept their defeat to work alongside former enemies. But gradually connections were being made. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were established. Young QR students applied to Earth universities, while human scientists shared knowledge with QR researchers. It was during this period that Talon received one final message from Jack. "Commander, I hope you're settling into your new role. I wanted you to know that the quantum destabilizer and antimatter store have been safely destroyed. The Earth Alliance never intended to keep them. We already have weapons far beyond anything in your arsenal. The point was never to arm ourselves further, but to disarm the hostility between our peoples." Talon stared at the message, feeling a mix of relief and renewed unease. If the Earth Alliance possessed weapons beyond the quantum destabilizer, what level of technology were they really dealing with? Jack's message continued. "I also wanted to answer the question you never asked, why me? Why was I chosen for this mission? The answer is simple, I volunteered. Not because I wanted to demonstrate our power, but because I believed peace was possible. I still believe that, Commander. I've seen the potential in your people just as I've seen it in mine. Our species have much to learn from each other." The message paused, and when it resumed, Jack's tone had changed, becoming more personal. "I know you've wondered if I was ever really in danger in your fortress. The truth is yes, but not from your weapons or your guards. I was in danger of losing faith. Every time I saw fear in a soldier's eyes, every time I watched someone struggle with conditioning that told them to hate, I wondered if this was worth it. But you proved it was. Your people, when given the choice, chose to step aside rather than kill. That gives me hope." Talon found himself nodding, remembering the faces of his guards as Jack had walked past them. They had looked confused, conflicted, but not murderous. Something in Jack's presence had awakened their better nature. "Our peoples are not so different, Commander," Jack's message concluded. "We both value honor, courage, protection of family. The war happened because we focused on our differences instead of our similarities. Peace survives because we choose to focus on what we share." The message ended with coordinates and a meeting place on the neutral world of Helix Station in 2 days. Talon considered ignoring it, filing it away as another diplomatic formality. But curiosity won out. 2 days later, he found himself in a small cafe on Helix Station, a bustling trade hub that had quickly become a symbol of QR Earth cooperation. The place was filled with beings from dozens of species, the background noise a mixture of languages and cultures. Jack appeared exactly on time, looking no different than he had months ago. He moved through the cafe with the same calm confidence, drawing the same inexplicable respect from strangers. He sat across from Talon and ordered coffee and earth beverage that had become surprisingly popular among QR citizens. "Thank you for coming," Jack said simply. "Why did you want to meet?" Talon asked. "Because you're important to what comes next," Jack replied. "You've seen war, and you've seen peace. Your people trust you, and you've begun to understand ours. Leaders like you are essential for what we're building." "And what exactly are we building?" Jack gestured around the cafe at the mixture of species, talking, trading, learning from each other. "A galaxy where differences are celebrated instead of feared, where conflicts are resolved through understanding instead of violence, where the threat of annihilation exists not to dominate, but to protect what we've built together." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the life of the station flow around them. Finally, Talon spoke. "At DRL-9 you said I was important, that I would help build the peace. How could you know that?" Jack smiled. "Because I saw who you really are, Commander. Not the soldier shaped by war, but the leader who cares about his people. Not the commander following orders, but the man questioning whether those orders serve any real purpose. That's why your guards stepped aside. They saw the same thing in me that I saw in you."
"And what was that?"
"The desire to protect what matters, not destroy what threatens." Talon considered this, turning it over in his mind. "There are still those among my people who resist cooperation with the Alliance, who see peace as defeat. Of course there are, Jack nodded. Just as there are humans who wanted to use the quantum destabilizer on QR worlds rather than empty planets. Fear and hatred don't disappear overnight. But they can be overcome one person at a time, one choice at a time. And if they can't be overcome if someone tries to restart the war, Jack's expression grew serious. Then we'll be ready. But the threat of force is only effective if you're genuinely prepared to never use it. The moment you become eager for war, you've already lost the peace. They finished their coffee and prepared to leave. As they stood, Jack placed a hand on Talon's shoulder. Commander, I want you to know the fortress you commanded was never about keeping humans out. It was about keeping fear in. Now that the fear is gone, what will you build instead? With that, Jack walked away, disappearing into the crowd with the same ease he had walked through the defenses of DRL-9. Talon stood there for a long moment, thinking about the question, about the choices ahead, about the kind of galaxy they were all working to create. Over the following years, Talon became one of the most respected figures in QR-Earth relations. His unique experience, having witnessed both the worst and best of both species, made him an invaluable mediator. He helped establish the joint military academies where QR and human officers trained together. He oversaw the cultural exchange programs that gradually broke down generations of mistrust. But he never forgot Jack's final words to him, never stopped thinking about the deeper meaning of what had happened at DRL-9. One human had walked into their fortress, and no one had walked out. Not because of death or defeat, but because there had been no need for anyone to leave as enemies. The fortress itself was eventually converted into a research station jointly operated by Earth and QR scientists. They studied the volcanic geology of Terrace, developed new technologies, and occasionally hosted diplomatic conferences. The weapon storage chambers were turned into laboratories. The guard posts became observation decks. And in the deepest level of the old facility, they erected a simple monument. No grand statue or elaborate memorial, just a simple inscription that served as a reminder. One human walked into their fortress. No one walked out. Here began the peace. Talon visited that monument often in his later years, always accompanied by students from the joint academies, always telling the story of the day everything changed. He would explain how the most impregnable fortress in QR space had been overcome not by superior weapons or clever tactics, but by something much simpler and infinitely more powerful: the choice to believe that peace was possible. Some students would ask if he resented Jack for what he had done, for the humiliation of that day. Talon would always smile and give the same answer. Humiliation is when someone takes something from you by force. Liberation is when someone shows you that what you thought was strength was actually a prison. Jack didn't humiliate us. He set us free. In the end, perhaps that was the real message of DRL-9. That strength wasn't about building higher walls or more powerful weapons, but about knowing when to lower your defenses and extend your hand. That victory wasn't about defeating your enemies, but about helping them become your friends. The war was over. The fortress had fallen. And from its ashes, something far more valuable than any weapon had been built: a future where difference was not a threat to be contained, but a gift to be shared. Years passed, and Jack's prediction proved accurate. There were those who tried to restart the conflict, extremists on both sides, who preferred the clarity of war to the complexity of peace. But they found themselves increasingly isolated, their calls for violence drowned out by the growing chorus of those who had seen what cooperation could accomplish. The quantum destabilizer remained a legend, a story told to remind both species of the power that chose not to be used. No one built such weapons again. No one needed to. The threat of annihilation had been replaced by something far more effective: the promise of partnership. And somewhere in the galaxy, Jack continued his work building bridges between species, showing others what one person with hope and determination could accomplish. Because that perhaps was the greatest lesson of all, that you don't need to be superhuman to change the world. You just need to be willing to walk into a fortress with nothing but faith and see what happens when you treat your enemies as if they might one day become your friends. One human walked into their fortress. No one walked out. Because by the time he left, they were all walking forward together.